Hello, this video shows an example user interaction with the Wings Workflow Portal. The Wings Workflow Portal is a web application that allows a user to easily create and run workflows. Workflows can either be run on a single machine or in a distributed environment via Pegasus and grid computing. Before I go on, it would be good to quickly go over the Wings interfaces and terminology. This is the Wings interface for creating domains. In Wings, a domain is an enclosed environment containing semantic information about data types, data, component types, components, and workflows. A unique feature of Wings is the use of semantic constraints to reason about the workflow. We use W3C standards like OWL and RDF to represent these semantics. This is the Wings interface for creating data types and uploading data. Data types are hierarchical and can be defined as having certain metadata properties, as shown on the screen. Data belonging to a certain type would have its metadata properties filled out for it by a user. This is the Wings interface for creating component types. Component types contain information about inputs and outputs. The data type for each input and output is specified. This is the Wings interface for creating components. Components are basically implementations of the component types that I explained earlier. We can have multiple implementations of the same component type depending upon which component library is currently selected. We also have the ability to specify semantic rules for component types and components. These are some examples of component rules. These rules define metadata propagation and component preconditions. Rules help Wings in selecting or validating data, parameters, and components for a workflow. This is a Wings interface for creating workflows. On the left we can see my templates for the current domain. On the right is the template representation itself. The lower part has a graphical representation of the template, showing the data variables, the component nodes, and the links between them. The upper part shows the constraints on data variables. This is the Wings interface for running or executing workflows. Again, on the left you can see the workflow templates. On the right you see the execution form for the template, constraints for the template, and a graphical representation for the template. The values of the execution form allow the user to indicate which input files to use for running this particular template. We can click on Suggest Data, which runs through the component rules that I talked about earlier and the data library to select appropriate datasets for us to use. We can also click on Show Hide Explanations, which shows us which rules fired. All this information that you can see are basically printouts from the rules. Let's go ahead and select one of these options. We can now click on Suggest Parameters, which again runs through the component rules and provides us appropriate values of parameters for the selected datasets. Let's select one of the options. Now that the whole execution form is filled, we can finally click on Run Workflow. This finally submits the workflow for execution. Execution could either be on grids, clusters, clouds, or simply on a laptop if computations are smaller. This can be configured by going to the Manage Domain interface that I showed earlier and changing the execution engine for a particular domain. Going back to the Run interface, we can click on Monitor Execution, which opens the Access Results interface. Here we can see the recently executed runs and details about them. In the details we can see the input, intermediate, and output datasets. We can click on a dataset to view it. We can also click on the Workflow tab to view the executed workflow, and also on the Run Log tab to view the run log, which can be useful for debugging. Note that we have used a simple workflow in this video as an example, but we have developed complex workflows as well. Here is an example of a text analytics workflows that uses state-of-the-art text analytics methods. And this is an example of a genomics workflow that's used for genomic analysis. Thank you. This video showed an example user interaction with the Wings Workflow Portal.